were you prepared for me to potentially not come home from Everest?
What does prepared mean?
The Final Summit is produced by Bloodstream Media and made possible thanks to our sponsor, Tremo Pharmaceuticals. Visit resethastudy.com to learn more about their work. The Final Summit was also made possible by support from Genentech. Visit genentechhemophilia.com to take a look at how they are supporting the hemophilia community.
As I slowly plod through the dark towards the summit of Chomolungma, Mount Everest, I tried to remain focused on each and every step. At over 26,000 feet, each step rips the breath out of your lungs. The only thing I can see is the 5 to 10 feet my headlamp illuminates in front of me. The oxygen mask covers my face tightly, and it feels like I'm closer to walking on the moon than climbing a mountain here on Earth. I'm in the death zone, where your body is literally consuming itself. I only have hours to be up here before the death zone lives up to its name. But as I continued up the steep face towards the balcony, I'm given a stark reminder of where I actually am. Only a few steps off the climbing route lay the outline of a climber. His head is facing downhill, and his face is exposed and blackened. This gentleman's climb ended a year earlier in the most dreadful way imaginable. Something that everyone knows is possible, but hopes it won't be them. I tried not to look at that body as I slowly passed, but then another reminder I can't ignore. A different body, but this person was still clipped into the same rope I was climbing. He died just days earlier. I had to unclip my carabiners from the rope in order to move past him. A thought that hadn't appeared in my mind now sprung to the surface. What are you doing here? You don't belong. My name is Chris Bombardier, and I'm a mountaineer with hemophilia. In the early 2010s, I started thinking about a goal called the 7 Summits, which is climbing the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. To be honest, I think I picked the goal because I believed it was attainable. I know that might sound crazy since no one with hemophilia had tried it before, but a lot of being successful in climbing is being stubborn and being able to push through discomfort. That was my wheelhouse. I think my stubbornness is hereditary, much like my hemophilia. Thanks, Mom. But being able to push through discomfort was having hemophilia to a T. In order to overcome having bleeds, where the pain consumes every aspect of your being, you have to find ways to transport yourself mentally to a different place. I also wanted to prove something to myself and others. I felt a deep need to show people that I wasn't weak. I needed to prove I was just as tough as anyone else. This podcast, on the other hand, has sprung up for another reason. Patrick Lynch and the folks at Believe Limited did a fantastic job putting together the film Bombadier Blood. But there's only so much information you can put into an 80-minute documentary. There was more depth to many of the stories, untold stories, and lessons that I learned along the way that were powerful, but just didn't really fit neatly into the film. Life has changed quite drastically in those 5 years. I moved across the country, switched jobs, and had a baby. But I've also experienced a lot of emotional growth in that time. Some of the mental health challenges that were described in the movie, they kept creeping up. Sometimes they were small and manageable, but other times they were completely overwhelming. I really felt broken until I found a therapist that has helped me put words and bring deeper understanding to these feelings. I wish I would have had that vocabulary when the movie was made. I don't think my experiences are unique either. I've met many people after screenings that said they struggled with needle phobia or anxiety around their bleeding disorder, and the film helped them feel like they weren't alone. I wish I could have shared a little bit more about the lessons and tools I've learned along the way to help them even more. So that's what this podcast is about. We want to dive into some of the rich topics, tell some of the fun and interesting stories of the climb that weren't in the film, and also help shed some light on the big picture, the global bleeding disorder community, and the drastic disparity in care that exists around the world. But back to Everest. As the sun began to rise, the world opened up beyond the small scope of where my headlamp shined, and it revealed chaos. A crowd of climbers moved towards what looked like another body lying in the snow. But I realized they weren't passing this one, and another gentleman was crying out in panic. This body wasn't dead. It was a young Sherpa fighting to live. His gloves were shed and his goggles were absent. He didn't move until his fellow Sherpa tapped on his face. His eyes shot open and his arm shot up briefly before falling to his side. He was fighting to live. Tragedy could potentially be unfolding in front of my eyes. It was overwhelming. These were people with families that never returned or were going to come back with serious injuries. And I have hemophilia. They died without having a major medical condition. Should I be up here? I still felt strong, but I couldn't help this feeling of doubt creep up. Was this worth the risk of never seeing my wife Jess again? We had dreamed of having a family, and I was excited to be a parent with Jess. What if that never happened? Is this goal worth pushing it so close to the edge? We waited to have a family until after Everest because of this exact risk. What if that means we never have a family at all?
Chronic pain can be caused by many things, but if you have severe hemophilia, there's a chance that some of your pain might be the result of what's called hemophilic arthropathy, or HA for short. That's why I'm excited to tell you about the Reset HA study from Tremo Pharmaceuticals. Tremo was founded with the goal of developing and delivering non-opioid pain therapies for people living with pain. Tremo's Reset HA study is a clinical research study for people who experience joint pain due to hemophilia. The study is evaluating an oral non-opioid investigational drug designed to be taken once a day to see if it may potentially help relieve joint pain and improve physical function in people with hemophilic arthropathy, HA. You may be eligible to participate in this clinical research study if you are between the ages of 12 to 75, have been diagnosed with hemophilia A or B, have chronic pain in one or more joints, and do not take opioid medication more than 4 days a week. If you are interested in learning more about taking part in Tremo's Reset HA study, visit resethastudy.com. That's RESETHA study.com to find a location near you. Reset the way you manage your pain. Visit resethastudy.com today.
The obvious aspect of climbing Mount Everest is it's Everest.
Obviously, it's got the allure of not only climbers, but general population just because of the uniqueness of being the highest peak.
How many summits have you had?
6 times to the summit. Well, I'm Ryan Waters. I'm a mountain guide primarily and own and operate and often guide for Mountain Professionals, international expedition company based here in Boulder, Colorado. There's no shortage of literature and, dreamy books written about Everest, but from a climber standpoint, it holds that obvious distinction, right? I think from a pure climbing and just aesthetic side, it is a great mountain. It's a beautiful, great climb and very special, with also just the uniqueness of the culture around the mountain, the Sherpas, the Nepalis in general. Just a cool adventure all over.
A lot of reading books. I read, I think, 7 very big books. I read the history of the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
It was 1,000 pages. That's how bored I was.
Now joined by Rob Bradford, who accompanied me to Everest Base Camp and helped shoot Bombardier blood. I read 3 Game of Thrones books, and I ran out of them because I was like, there's no way I'm going to read 3 Game of Thrones books. And I had finished it within half of our trip.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm going to reread a Game of Thrones book. What was your most frustrating experience with me trying to film on the mountain?
I don't think there was one most frustrating part. I think kind of in general, you're just a very frustrating person. You you don't want to be interviewed. You didn't want to be filmed ever. I had to drag you out of your tent a lot. And it would just be, we would have these conversations through your tent wall where I'd be like, Chris, and it was,
That was one time.
No, that was many times.
We would take a lot of treks down to Gorkshep, the highest little village.
And what?
And
Yeah,
just for Coke. We'd just like walk out, what was it? It was
like
a few
2
miles.
hours. Yeah,
Just to go
round
get a
trip.
Coke, have a Coke, and then come back.
Have a Coke and like be in a building. I remember it was nice because like the tents didn't count as like a building whatsoever. It was still very much what the temperature was outside. but then you could go in a building and they had like a stove.
Yeah, and like a door. It was really fun to like open real doors.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, this is sweet, and like flip a light on.
Yeah, there's electricity. They one thing I didn't realize too was that when you're at base camp, there's like the tallest mountain in the world right there. It's like a couple 100 yards in front of you. And then around it, though, are just a bunch of other mountains. And they all kind of look like the same height when you're sitting down there. But the rest of them, you can do day hikes on.
Yeah.
Just like you're walking like a normal hike back home, kind of, except you're, 18, 19,000 feet up. And then across the way, like, people are risking their lives and having these crazy experiences. And I'm just sitting on a bluff, like eating some lunch.
It's always in the back of your head that it is it can be a dangerous place. I mean, as you know from being there, it's the idea is to try to minimize the objective, or you can't really minimize objective hazards, right? Things that can fall down on you, or impacts from things that are out of your control, but you try to minimize the other things that you do have control over. How are you and people feeling, and are we in good position, and we have the right amount of equipment and the right things in the right places? You just get in the mindset. I mean, you become a climber every time. Like when I say that, you're totally in the zone of that mountain and on the route and with the people you're climbing with. And so you really get in tune with the mountain and try to just be fluid and really efficient in dangerous areas and stuff like that.
Was there ever a moment, like, I don't think you ever mentioned this to me, but like where you're like, I don't know if we should take the guy with hemophilia?
I don't think so. I think other than just thinking through, ahead of time, the kind of, okay, what if scenarios.
I remember on the climb, I never felt like an unsafe position ever, even though it is obviously this very dangerous mountain with these real hazards. I never felt unsafe, but I remember that obviously when you're climbing, you do see very real reminders of what can go wrong.
Yeah, the bodies, which I always like to just throw out. I mean, it's not like littered with bodies like some mainstream media would lead you to believe, but yeah, for sure. The first time I saw a person that was, unfortunately laying there, it definitely kind of strikes you, and you get that weird, eerie feeling. You don't want to go close to the body and all that. And unfortunately, over time, I think you get a little bit desensitized to it, and it's still weird, but it's just kind of like, in a lot of ways, you kind of know where there's going to be right now. Like last year when I climbed, there was only, I think, two bodies that are there, and they've been there for years. So you kind of know what's coming, and you just go, oh, it's unfortunate, and this is a terrible scene, but you just kind of try to block it out as best you can.
Most in your face possibility of, like you said, stepping over dead bodies and hearing of all these other people that died, even just that season, like while you were climbing.
I'm Jess Bombardier, married to Chris Bombardier.
Were you prepared for me to potentially not come home from Everest?
What does prepared mean?
She talked about it. We put together a will, right? And I put together a will.
I didn't sign off on that.
Talked about finances and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We definitely had conversations about the potential of you not coming home. We delayed starting a family. So in the moment, it was, we're going to do you right now. These are your dreams, and these are our priorities right now. And like, we can't really flip-flop time-wise because, you're going to get old and crinkly and not going to be able to have the same energy to put into climbing. So it made sense to delay family planning. I was, of course, itchy for a family. That was what I wanted. But I was like, okay, that's fine. We can wait another 6 months. That's no biggie. I knew in the moment I was sacrificing certain things. But we were both okay with it. It was just a choice that we made together.
And I think, the big discussion was, about not starting a family, just because for me, it was like, I couldn't imagine leaving you with a child, like a small child. And I if I didn't come home, like that would be your full responsibility. And also like, I don't think I could have focused on climbing the mountain and being in the moment. And I think I would have been very distracted and maybe turned around way sooner, because like that responsibility of this little human outweighed that goal. So that was like the big deciding moment of like, oh, we're gonna wait till after this one, because it was the one that had the most real possibility of dying. Obviously all of them did, but that one was like the most dangerous of all of the ones I did.
I think we did a really good job of communicating with each other about what all of this meant and how it was going to affect our lives and how things would change. I can't think of a single conversation I wish we would have done differently. I'm very proud of the way that we approached it.
Hey, Jen.
Oh!
What's up, Everest, dude? I love you so much.
Oh, he's up there?
Yes.
Can he hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Chris. I'm so proud of you.
I can hear you, babe. I love you so much. I'll see you soon. Right over.
I'm so proud of you.
When we were there, a famous climber, Uli Steck, lost his life climbing, and word immediately like went like wildfire through base camp, because everyone was already excited that he was there. I think Chris had seen him the day before, or maybe a couple days before in the icefall. So when that happened, we were all like, wow, what, and like the Sherpa guys that, the mountaineer guides that Chris was with, they were the first ones down that I could ask about Uli. So I was like, what happened? And they had seen it happen, unfortunately. And very reverential, very much. They kept saying his life, and that was their way of kind of trying to like convey in English, like how, that they were honoring his life and everything. But it's difficult to put into words what I was feeling, because I was really just kind of keying off what they were feeling, and they were extremely, they were very sad for what happened. They weren't scared to be sad for what they witnessed, and they weren't scared to like share it with each other. They were all hanging out together, just kind of really feeling the weight of what had happened and what they had witnessed. And just really, I was really impressed with like the level of like kind of community and like being an openness to feeling those things together, and how they kind of processed it all together. It was really, really impressive. It was something I've never seen before, of people, of like, when do guys get together and be sad in a group and like console each other in a way that's like also really uplifting. Like they're really, wanting to honor Uli's life, and none of them knew Uli, but they were still like giving homage to the life he led and everything. And it was just really powerful. I kind of just stood there and watched, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to talk to them really. I just kind of wanted to see what they were doing.
Yeah. And I think, these guys are the toughest human beings I've ever seen in my life too.
Yeah.
They're literally running up Mount Everest like it's nothing, crossing these ladders and crevasses and doing some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even like phase them. Like they're so, like in the zone, they're so, amazing climbers. But then at the same time, they have this just really like delicate, present nature to them, that was just really amazing to like witness and see.
I should also say they also love to party.
They do love to
so
party.
So much fun. And so that was also amazing. I remember the day you all summited. You summited, I think it was like 10:45 or 9:45.
9:45.
Yeah, something like that in the morning. And so, we had this moment over the radio. You summited. I was freaking out. And then I'm by myself again with non-English speakers and no one to I had all this pent-up energy. This was now 6 months in the making. All this pent-up energy of would Chris make it? Would I press record in time to hear it on the radio? Would all that stuff come together? And it did. And so I just freaked out. I started bawling, crying. I was trying to tell them what I was going through, but I think I was crying so pathetically that they weren't sure. As opposed to them being so openly crying and openly sharing with their feeling emotion, I was crying like somebody put their thumb over a garden hose, crying. I was crying in fits and spurts, convulsions. I was looking really pathetic, and I was trying to speak, but I didn't know how to convey in English what I was talking about. And they're like, "Okay, buddy, you want another beer? Just drink."
The obvious answer, or the obvious aspect of climbing Mount Everest is it's Everest. It's literally the highest mountain in the world. It's the one everybody's heard of. You've heard of since your childhood, I'd read every book about it. It has this mythology around it. And to be actually on it and then standing on the summit of it, having that view that Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay had, and maybe George Mallory and Sandy Irvine, back in the 1920s, to be standing in the same spot those amazing humans were standing and sharing something with them was overwhelming. Just absolutely overwhelming. I think the most special part of that entire experience was getting to hear Jess's voice on the summit of that mountain, because that goal wasn't just about, it wasn't just me getting to the top of that mountain. She was a huge part of that.
It's so incredible to watch your partner, this is going to sound so cheesy, but to reach the summit of his dreams. I don't know what other words to use. That's super cliche and awful. But he did.
But it's just amazing having a partner that just believes in you, no matter what, and just supports you.
I think really leaning into your partner and listening to what it is that they are passionate about and supporting them the best you can. I think that's really all you can do.
And now, one of the things she always wanted to do was have a family and have kids, which I did too. I wanted to raise a kid with her, or maybe multiple, if it's up to her, a dozen. But we finally get to have that, which has just been the most fun experience and exhausting too. So very similar to mountaineering, I guess. And these amazing highs, and also these oh my gosh, I'm tired, I just want to go to bed for a while. But that's what's been really powerful and amazing is we get to share this goal and dream together too of having a family. And I would say that's another beautiful adventure too of we don't know how this is going to end up. We don't know what the next day is going to look like, but it's fun and let's go for it. So that's been really cool.
This next segment is brought to you by Genentech. Though caring for people with hemophilia can be difficult, it's important to remember you're not in this alone and that help is available. Genentech has resources that help caregivers better navigate hemophilia and stories that can help you learn about other people's experiences. In the words of Miranda, a mother of twin boys with hemophilia, the hemophilia community has a bright future. To hear more about Miranda and others in the hemophilia community, please visit www.thecommunityhelps.com.
About 5 months after I returned home from the climb, an article was written in the New York Times titled "Deliverance from 27,000 Feet." The article beautifully articulates the story of the retrieval of the first body I saw on the summit day of Everest. His name was Gautam Ghosh, and his story was similar to mine. He was young and dreamed of summiting Everest. He gave everything for his shot at the summit, and he didn't make it. I struggled to reconcile why he didn't live, and I was able to succeed and survive. I truly realized how close I pushed. and it confirmed that I won't push it that far again. I also thought back to the young Sherpa that was in crisis on the mountain. He was able to be rescued, which is a rare occurrence from the height we were at. A group of climbers dragged him down to Camp 3, where he was then helicoptered off the mountain. I heard later through the grapevine that he only lost a finger or two due to frostbite. He was lucky to be alive, but his life would be forever changed. That easily could have been me too. I'm so thankful for my family, and especially my wife. Her patience allowed me to believe in this wild goal, and now has gifted me with this beautiful son, Carter. But Everest wasn't the first mountain in my journey to climb the 7 summits, and it wasn't even the last. Thanks for listening to The Final Summit, a podcast from Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media, supported through advertising by Tremo Pharmaceuticals and Genentech. Be sure to rate and subscribe to The Final Summit on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, and share this episode with a friend. Tune in next time for our journey to Kilimanjaro. Well, you'll get to hear. So I'm joined by Lori Kelly, who is the founder of Save One Life.
Nothing behind a desk can compare to real life, as you know, right?
Absolutely.
You found that out too. It's nothing compared to actually being with the people in their homes or their communities.
I'm Chris Bombardier. Until next time, find your outside.
The Final Summit was written by Chris Bombardier and Drew Johnson, produced and directed by Keith Cornella, edited by Greg Bernhard, artwork by Christina Newhart, executive produced by Patrick James Lynch. The Final Summit was made possible by advertising support from Tremo Pharmaceuticals. Visit resethastudy.com to learn more about their work. The Final Summit was also made possible by advertising support from Genentech. Visit Genentech Hemophilia to take a look at how Genentech is supporting the hemophilia community.